Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to our
Hello.
podcast. Hey, Nav. Um,
Hey.
Today, you know what, Nav, what I wanted to do, this is election season here in the US, and people are talking about all kinds of things. As usual, there's a group of people talking about tax the rich, tax the rich. So this idea of tax the rich and just tax the rich really gets on my nerve. Not that because I'm a rich person, I'm not, but to me, just going after people who have been successful. But anyway, so I wanted to get your thought as to see what you think. You and I generally agree on everything, a lot of things, but I wasn't sure how you feel about taxing the rich. What are your thoughts on that?
So funny you bring that up because it's interesting. It is a big topic here and I think all over the world. And more recently, we have in US, you had Mayor Mamdani for New York talking about taxing the rich more and blah blah blah. And so honestly, whenever I think about taxing the rich, it reminds me of, remember the Robin Hood,
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
story of Robin Hood, steal from the rich to feed the poor. And literally that's what I think of whenever I hear taxing the rich. So I I'm not a rich guy, so I, to a certain degree, I am in favor of taxing high earners in as long as it benefits society, so that in some way it also benefits them. A lot of times, they're like, "Oh, tax the rich," um, and or what do they get out of it? But if you're taxing the rich to then make a difference in society, make a difference in whatever it may be, maybe make the roads better, maybe infrastructure better, maybe improve transit system better, then I'm not opposed to that at all. I think that's a great idea. I think as long as there's rules and regulations so that it's fair, I don't have any issue with that. However, I do have an issue with these very, very rich people are able to go through loopholes to avoid paying tax. And you know, I watched uh, a show with Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah was talking about this, and he says, rich people can use assets that they have, but they don't have to pay tax on it because it's an asset that's not a they haven't actually got it. But yet they can go to banks and borrow money based on those assets. But because the money is borrowed based on assets, they don't get taxed. Anyway, I just did a really bad job of explaining what
You actually
Trevor Noah did.
you didn't do a bad job. This is unfortunately this is the kind of news that is out there, misinformation all around. Let me just say a couple of things about what you already said. I've got very strong views about a lot of this, but one thing you said about taxing and putting into good use, I'm all for that as well, absolutely. But you know what? Whenever this, at least in the West, actually most governments, if you want to screw something up, give it to the government. All this money that they take the money supposedly to help the people who need it, but it doesn't happen. It just goes to fraud and it goes to all kinds of, goes to the politicians' pockets. Here in America, politicians, without exception, they come into politics with very little money. There are some exceptions, but they have come with very little money and leave politics the millionaires. How does that happen? It is just corruption. So the money does not go where it's supposed to go. And then the other thing about this misinformation that people borrow money but they don't pay taxes. That's just a complete. That is absolutely not correct because there are
Mm.
other ways that they're going to be taxed. But essentially, my thought is, what do you think? I mean, most governments have progressive tax, meaning the more you earn, the more you have to pay taxes. So that is already embedded in, at least in Canada, US, England, it's all in the Western world, it's embedded in. So, but in your mind, just give me a number. What should a rich person, what percentage of their income should they give for taxes? What do you think? Just give a number.
So what? like not a
at the percentage.
progressive one,
No, yeah,
not a
what like
progressive
a
one.
millionaire, what should you and I will have a tax rate? Let's say we pay, I don't know, 15, 20%. What should a billionaire pay tax rate be?
If I'm just gonna pluck a number out of the air, I would say 40%.
Okay. So why? Why should it be
Because
like, why should it be so much higher than you and I? Why?
they're just well, simply because their income is higher. That's all. I know what you're saying. You're saying why should it be higher? But if you're earning more money and significantly more money, I don't mean just $5,000, $6,000 more, then I mean I just plucked the number. It's just the number that I came up with.
But
I know there's
you're not alone. You are not alone in this. A lot of people, I mean, if you listen to the news, everybody's talking about tax to rich, tax to rich. In fact, Mamdani, you mentioned, you know what he did? He
yeah,
went,
no, I
when
don't.
he came to power, he said, I'm going to tax the rich. That's what he said. And then one of the things he did was he went and stood in front of one of the top billionaires in front of his penthouse, a film. He just knocked on the camera and says, hey, I am going to tax you. We're going to tax you. This guy was about to spend $6 billion investment in New York. Do you really think that he's going to do that now? But they're going to,
Right.
after more of his taxes, this is the other side nobody ever understands. That if you go rich,
Yeah.
the rich are the people who are bringing the jobs and bringing the economy to the city, to the country. You tax them, they're going to go find somewhere else. In fact, it has happened here in the US, from California, from New York. A lot of people have moved out, have gone to Florida, because Florida doesn't have a state income tax, and they have got
Oh.
much better tax rules. So for the people who want to, they shouldn't have to be taxed like that. And I think, the other thing that you may or may not know, guess who pays most of the tax in America?
Who pays
Who
most of
pays?
the
Like
tax?
what group of people pay? What percentage of people pay the most of the taxes?
Middle class.
No, 1% of Americans pay 40% of all taxes. And here's the other thing: 40% of households in the US pay zero taxes. So you tell me, people are talking about tax to rich, to help these poor people like us. So the 40% of households don't pay any taxes. Top 1% pays about 40% of taxes. Top 10%, you mean the 10% richest people, pay 70% of all taxes. So how much more are
Oh,
you going to tax them? What's going to happen is you tax them too much. One, they're going to leave. Two, if you start earning money, somebody comes and says to you, I have to tax you higher when you go above 1 million. What do you think that person is going to do? Once he hits the million, he's going to say, well, I don't want to work for 30 cents on the dollar. I'm going to stop working. And when he stops working, he's got to fire a few people. He has to lay people off because he doesn't want to earn money that he has to pay 70 cents or 80 cents on the taxes. So I think, to me, there's a big misnomer that people have got this tax the rich, without thinking about the consequences and without thinking about what those people actually pay now.
what you just said, funny. I did hear that. I did hear some podcast where one guy said if all the rich people didn't pay tax, then everybody else would have to pay more. Like everybody else at middle class or low class would have to pay more. So yeah, and I honestly I get it. I get it. If you are earning more money, you as an individual you would question, then why am I paying more? But and I'm not rich, but I'm hoping that if I was a high earner and I was in the top 10% or whatever, I wouldn't have an issue with paying more tax.
And I
But
think
that's
if you talk,
hypothetical because that's hypothetical because I'm not there, so I don't really know.
and I think if you talk to most of the millionaires, billionaires, they are willing. They're some of the biggest contributors to charities, and to look at Bill Gates and look at Tim Cook, they spend a lot of money in philanthropy. Joe Bezos, they all spend a lot of money in philanthropy, and they don't mind paying the money, the extra taxes. I think most billionaires, their issue is their money goes to waste. These billionaires will be able to spend that money far more efficiently than the government can. The government just, takes the money and they just waste it. So that's the other part of the issue that I think the millionaires and billionaires have. I am certainly not a millionaire, but I do have that issue that the governments really just waste our money. They are the most inefficient organization in the world. The way the governments run with our money, any corporation will fire the CEO. And I guess here the way that you fire people is through elections, right? So they do. But the problem is they're all the same.
I was going to ask you. I wonder if there's a government somewhere in the world that is actually doing a better job. Like I wonder.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are places that opportunity for corruption is less. New Zealand, for instance, I think New Zealand is one of the better. Australia is another one. But U.S., Canada, particularly the U.S., huge corruption going on. So to me, it's not a question of taxing the rich is not going to help. If it was to help, okay, but just taxing the rich more than they already taxed, I don't think that's going to solve any problems.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's funny. It's a topic that's been around for generations.
It sure has.
Like it's nothing new, right? It's nothing new. It's a topic that's been around for generations. People will always talk about it. But fundamentally, I think you and I would agree that if it genuinely was benefiting society to improve society style of living or whatever it may be, then I think that is a good idea. But because of the poor maintenance by government and I guess the red tape that's involved in the government, it's really not panning out like that. So maybe I won't become a millionaire.
The governments have got an incentive to keep people dependent on the government. So the government rather take the money from the rich and give it to people who are not as rich. And this way they keep control. They get them under their control. But where is the incentive? If you sit around and people get somebody else's money and give it to you, where is the incentive for you? Where is the motivation for you to want to go and become a millionaire yourself, right? On that topic, I mean, it's kind of a similar kind of topic. It suddenly came to my mind now. I want to know what you think. This is another one of those things that people talk a lot about, minimum wage. What do you think about mandated minimum wage? What do you think?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So minimum wage is definitely on top of everybody's mind. And everybody's always like, oh, minimum wage is always lower. Inflation always goes higher than minimum wage doesn't increase. And I think here in BC, I think in Canada, we have one of the best minimum wage rates. So again, I'm not opposed to it. I think having minimum wage, having companies put in a position where they can't take advantage of staff, so that they have a base to give them. However, the base is always not enough anyways. Like the minimum wage that they say companies should give is not really in line with the current cost of living or at any point.
And if you can't force it, you can't force it. So I mean, you and I both work at McDonald's. So let's imagine we have a McDonald's restaurant and we hire people. And let's say you decide that you're going to pay them only $5 an hour. Doesn't matter what the minimum wage is. Nobody's going to work for you. If the minimum wage is $20, you want to pay them $20, you're going to go out of business because you cannot pass. This is the problem in this. People expect you to pay more, but they're not willing to pay more for their Big Mac, right? So right. What the choice businesses have, you either have a choice of passing that cost to your customers, which customers don't want, which you're going to lose business. And the other choice is that you shut down. A couple of years ago, a big fast food chain, the name escapes me now, they shut down over 300 stores in California because the minimum wage went to $20. They can't run a business. So to me, you have to let the market do it. So let's say minimum wage is $6. You're never going to get anybody come and work for you for $6. No way. Because the market somewhere else, they're going to be able to find a place that they're going to make $7, $8, or $9. So by forcing a minimum wage, I think you're you're forcing the market to go the way that it doesn't want to go.
And yeah, because I guess you're thinking, I'm thinking it from stopping, I'm thinking the reverse. I'm thinking stopping companies take advantage of people by paying them less too. And then I also, what about that? I mean, that's another topic too, but it also, we can talk about foreign workers too. And so they pay, do they companies sneakily get away with paying less to foreign workers, which is not
Definitely
right
valid
too.
point.
So yeah, but I'm not opposed to minimum wage.
I think I
think
like the
it's
point you made about making sure that people are not taking advantage. I think that's, I can buy that to some degree to say that, you know what, minimum wage so that people can be taken advantage of, because you will always find somebody who's willing to work slave labor because they're desperate, and you shouldn't be able to take advantage of desperate people.
yeah.
What I'm opposed to is artificially increasing the minimum wage to something that you think this is the minimum wage is the minimum you need to live on. It is not sustainable. The businesses can't pay it, and that's going to cause either they go out of business or pass the cost
Yeah,
to the customers.
that's fair
Can you
enough.
believe it? We are at 15 minutes already. This
Wow,
so
time
fast.
flies.
It does fly. Well, that was a good discussion. But I mean, we're not going to solve it today, but it's always good to have that kind of a conversation.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed that. Thank you.
Let's ask our listeners to tell us what they think. You all listen to us talk, two different sides, to both the minimum wage as well as the taxing the rich. What do you all think? Put some comments, and don't forget to subscribe while you're putting some comments in.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Take care.
Bye.